it's Miss Terry, and today I'm here to talk about new selections at the library that feature LGBTQ plus characters. And when you're at the library and you're looking for other books like the ones I'm going to talk about today, if you flip to the back, you will find a rainbow heart sticker tucked in the back corner so that you can easily find books that you are interested in. Now, this first story is called Rise of the Sun. It's a fiction story, and it's about two girls, Olivia and Tori, and they both end up meeting at a summer musical festival in Georgia called the Farmland Music and Arts Festival. And Olivia's kind of there because she's trying to get away from her latest ex-boyfriend. She's very quick to fall in love, kind of falls in love at the drop of a hat. And there she meets Tori, and Tori's not so quick to warm up. She's been coming to the Farmland Festival for years with her tour manager father. Unfortunately, he's passed away, and it's been about 8 months since she's been back, and this is going to be her first time without her dad. So she's kind of struggling through the grief of losing her father, but she's also trying to get over her fear of performing on stage because she's a musician and she wants to sing. And Olivia and Tori end up having feelings for each other, and Olivia is going to help Tori overcome some of those fears. So this book is really about the healing power of music as well as just a really good summertime romance. So it's called Rise of the Sun. This next one is called Between Perfect and Real, and this is about Dean, who is a trans guy, and he's struggling. He's not out. He hasn't told his family. He hasn't told his friends. He hasn't told his girlfriend Zoe. Everybody just assumes that he's a lesbian girl, and he's not. But he sees an opportunity when his school puts on the play of Romeo and Juliet, and he's cast as Romeo. So he's thinking that once he's out of high school and goes off to college, he'll be able to be his true self. But then he realizes that he doesn't want to wait any longer, and he's going to come out to everyone at the school. And this kind of turns things on its head when the school says, no, then you can't be Romeo. Why it would make any difference, I have no idea, but he's battling some transphobia at his school and kind of rewriting his relationship with his girlfriend Zoe. So this is called Between Perfect and Real. It's also kind of written as almost like a mimic of a Shakespearean play, written in 5 acts. This next one is called How It All Blew Up. I love the way this book starts. I'm just going to read you the first line. It says, "First, let me get one thing straight. I'm not a terrorist. I'm gay." And this is the story of Amir, who is Muslim, and he is gay, and he's terrified of telling his family. So instead of going to graduation, he escapes to Rome, where he kind of meets up with this very pleasant group of gay men who kind of take Amir under his wing and kind of help him out. And then Amir realizes he really needs to go back home. And his family lives in America, so he goes back home, and he has a confrontation with his family, a rather angry one, on the airplane back to America, and they end up being detained by the Customs and Border Protection agents, and the entire story gets told in the airport jail as Amir is trying to explain what is really going on, and the fact that he's not a terrorist, he's just gay and having a hard time explaining it to his family. So this is definitely a little bit on the funny side, but it's really a story about a young gay man coming out to his family and finding who he is, his place in the world. This next one is called Can't Take That Away, and this is about Carrie Parker, who is a genderqueer teen and is really interested in becoming a diva like their idol, Mariah Carey, but due to a transphobic incident that happened at school, has always kind of kept that part of themselves away, and has kind of been ignoring it. But then Carrie ends up meeting another queer teen named Chris, and Chris is really interested in helping Carrie discover that part of themselves. And they decide to try out for the school musical, which is going to be Wicked, and Carrie receives the role of Elphaba. Well, it turns out that transphobic incident is not an isolated one, and there is a faction inside their school that's going to try to keep them from being able to have a lead role in the play. And Carrie and Chris decide to stand up to the bullies and really find their place at the school. So it's called Can't Take That Away. If you're a musical theater geek too, you also will enjoy this. This next one is called Meet Cute Diary, and this is about a trans teen named Noah Ramirez who is off in Colorado staying with his college student brother and writing a viral blog called Meet Cute Diary, which is a series of embellished trans love stories. And he finds his inspiration in the people he sees around him. And he ends up meeting one of his subjects, the ice cream guy, whose name is Drew. And Drew is a little annoyed at first, but then when Noah asks, can you please help me with my blog, they decide to fake date for a while. Well, we all know how that goes. Fake dating never really ends up working out, and the two fall for each other. And as they are starting to develop a relationship, Noah is figuring out what it really means to be in love and to have a boyfriend. He ends up getting a job at a summer camp where he meets a non-binary asexual coworker named Devin, and they get pretty close, and this causes some tension between him and Drew. And he's finding it hard to get advice. He doesn't know who to turn to. His best friend is missing in action and lives all the way across the country. So if you like romance stories, kind of a rom-com aspect, then you will enjoy Meet Cute Diary. This next one is called Bruised, and this is a story about Daya, who survived an accident when her parents did not. It was a car accident, and she survived. She's all alone, and she's really struggling. She's starting to get into some very dangerous, just not very smart situations, and she's also determined to get as many bruises as possible so that her outside matches her inside and how she is feeling, and she does this a lot through self-harm. So these are very self-destructive behaviors, and she's kind of trying to find an outlet to maybe help her get past her grief, or at least to not get past it necessarily, but to just deal with it. And she ends up finding a roller derby team called the Killa Honeys, and here is where she's going to find her new place in the world, and as well as maybe some romance. So that's called Bruised. This next one is a graphic novel. It's not a brand new one, but the number 3 in this series has just come out, so I thought I'd start with number 1 in case you missed it. And this one is a graphic novel, and it's called Heartstopper, and it's a story about an openly gay boy named Charlie and a rugby player named Nick. And Charlie kind of has a crush on Nick, and he doesn't really think that Nick would be returning his feelings, but it turns out he might just be wrong about that. So this one, the style of this artist is definitely manga influenced, but if you are looking for the story of two boys who fall in love, and again, this is the first in a series, you will enjoy Heartstopper. Another graphic novel, this one is called The Girl from the Sea, and this is a story about Morgan, who's 15 years old. She's got friends, she's got a family, but all she wants to do is escape. She lives on this island in the ocean, and she just wants to escape so that she feels like she can be her true self, and that is as a lesbian. And she hasn't told anybody this. And one day she kind of feels like she's drowning. Not only literally, but then one day she slips, hits her head, and falls into the ocean and is like literally drowning instead of just figuratively. And she ends up getting rescued by a girl named Kelty, who is actually a Selkie, and a Selkie is part seal, part girl. And she thinks she's kind of imagining things, so she ends up kissing Kelty. And this is actually true love's kiss, and gives Kelty her legs so that she can come on shore. And she kind of starts shaking things up for Morgan and making it so that escaping the island might not actually bring her the peace that she needs, but really might help her face what she's been ignoring for a long time to her family and friends. So that's The Girl from the Sea. This next one is called Violet Ghosts, and this is about Danny and his mom. And they've just moved for a fresh start to get away from a very abusive father figure in Danny's life. And Danny is a trans boy, but kind of in the closet to his best friend, Sarah, who happens to be a ghost that lives underneath his bed. And he's terrified of telling her that he's really a boy. And he's afraid that she will stop talking to him, and he doesn't really have anybody else because he's still trying to deal with the trauma of what has happened to him with his father, as well as living in a new place and trying to make new friends. Well, there are more women that turn up dead, murdered rather brutally in the woods near Danny's house. And Sarah convinces Danny that they should kind of set up a refuge for these ghosts that are now really kind of seeing Danny as a way to help them deal with their loss of their lives, and maybe even possibly be able to help those ghosts move on to the next part. So this is a really important, this is a really good ghost story, as well as a story about Danny, who, even though the fact that he does come out and he is a trans boy, it's not the biggest part of the story. It's really just an important part of who he is. And it's so if you're looking for a good story like that, that is called Violet Ghosts. This next one is another graphic novel. This one is called Flamer, and this is about Aiden, and he's 14 years old, and he's fat, and he's Filipino, and he has a very effeminate voice, and he gets bullied for all of that. Well, he really wants to go to Boy Scout summer camp. Unfortunately, things don't go super great there because he gets bullied quite a lot, but he starts to fall for one of his tent mates named Elias, and this book really talks about the struggles that he faces. His father is rather emotionally abusive, and a lot of his Aiden's anger comes out kind of in these red flames as he's trying to deal with the things that are happening to him, because really he doesn't have a problem with who he is. It just seems that everybody else does, and this is a book about how he deals with that. So it's called Flamer. This next one is called 1,500 Miles from the Sun, and it's about a 17-year-old Mexican-American boy named Julian who's out to everybody. Well, he's not out at first, but then unfortunately he gets drunk at a party and he ends up really coming out all over social media, except to his very homophobic, rather abusive father. So he's kind of trying to keep it a secret from that. And then he meets another boy online who's a Vietnamese American boy. His name is Matt, and he's also gay. Unfortunately, they live 1,500 miles apart. But unfortunately, somebody decides to blackmail Julian and ends up telling his father that he's gay. And his father goes into a rage and kicks Julian out of the house. And now Julian is making his way across the country to Matt in the hopes that he can find himself a new place to be. So that's 1,500 miles from the sun. This next one is called Sink or Swim, and this is about a shy trans teen named Bass, and he's finally gotten asked out on a date by his dream girl, Rosie, and Rosie's going to take him on an outdoor adventure for their date to this island she likes to go to in this little wooden boat. Well, a storm comes up and they end up stranded on the island, and Rosie thinks that she can try to help, and she tries to climb this tall peak so that they can kind of wave somebody down maybe, and she ends up falling and hurting herself. And it's now up to Bass to kind of get over some of his worries and end up swimming to find a way to rescue them. So that's called Sink or Swim. This is a super short, quick read, and a very easy read if you're looking for something like that. This next one is just a book. It's called A Quick and Easy Guide to They, Them Pronouns. It's written in graphic novel format. So if you have somebody in your life that needs some help understanding how to use them, this book was a very quick, easy read. It gives suggestions on what to do if you make a mistake. It gives suggestions on what to do if you're just really not sure where to begin. And it also gives you ideas on how to talk to the people in your life about what it means to use they, them pronouns and why it's important. Okay. This next one is called Out. This is a non-fiction book. It's called Out, How to Be Your Authentic Self. It's by Miles McKenna, who in 2017 decided to document his transition to becoming a boy on YouTube. So maybe you've seen some of his videos, but this is his guide on how he did it and what it's like to be trans and all of the issues you might face. Okay. So that's Out. Lots of tips and tricks and ideas on, again, just how to be yourself. And then the last book I have to share with you today is called Queer, the Ultimate LGBTQ Guide for Teens. This is the second edition, and it gives you lots of ideas on ways on coming out and different things that you might have to deal with and ways that you can prepare yourself for some of the issues you might face, ways to find allies. It also gives little sidebars of the history of the LGBTQ community to kind of provide context for the things that are happening today. And it's just a good nonfiction guide. And it's also, again, a quick read. Thanks for listening.